Hi everyone, time for chapter 3 of our Oodlethunks book, and it is called The Worst Plan Ever. So if you think back to what happened in the last chapter, they had just visited the witch trying to get a potion to keep Stacy Steg small. Chapter 3, Worst Plan Ever. Kids, you're late for dinner, called Dad. Sorry! I ran headlong inside the cave. We dropped Irma off and I stopped cold at the gross sight. Newts and knucklebones? What's Bruce Brute doing here at the table? Don't be rude, Una, said Mom. Bruce is our guest. He brought us some milk from his family dairy to go with our fried rattlesnake and fern salad. So we invited him to stay for dinner. Bruce licked his apricot juice-stained lips. I wouldn't say no to snake salad. Sit down and dig in, kids, said Dad. Bonk and I exchanged a look. Bruce Brute never came over unless he had a plan. Usually his plans were sneaky. Stacy looked bigger. I snuck a hunk of dinner moss into her bowl. Then I hid my potion pouch under my pillow. I hid my eggshell sack there too. The eggshells didn't feel like mine anymore. They felt like old Bruce. But I didn't know what I'd do about that. We'd barely started eating before Dad said, Bruce had an idea about Stacy. Uh-oh. I shoved a fistful of ferns in my mouth. As you know, Stacy is getting too big for this cave, continued Mom. So the Brutes thought she could move to Brute Dairy for the winter. She'd sleep with their mountain goats in their rock shelter. They'd all keep one another warm. In the spring, Stacy could come back, said Dad. By then, she'll be more of a sleep outdoors kind of pet. My feelings felt like they were going to explode. I swallowed my ferns and tried to stay calm. Nope. Nuh-uh. No way. I hadn't gone through all the trouble of caring for Stacy when she was a fragile egg, then a teeny steg, only to hand her over to that slug Bruce Brute. Bruce ate worms on dares. His face was always stained with juice, and just last week he wore his Uncle Thugless's bison bracelet, or lost his most prized possession. If Bruce didn't take care of a bracelet, he couldn't take care of an entire stegosaurus. The Brute's dairy is roomier than our cave, and Stacy will still be your steg, said Dad. Except I'd be the one to hug Stacy if she was lonely, said Bruce. I'd feed her dinner. I'd tuck her in at night. But you could still wake up super early to get her breakfast, Una. Thanks, Bruce. That's nice of you. I'd also like to say this is the worst plan ever. I glanced at Stacy. She'd finished her moss and still looked hungry. I jumped up with my bowl to give her the rest of my salad. It's not a bad plan. Stacy needs to rely on her instincts, said Mom. Stacy doesn't have instincts, I said. She likes me to do everything for her. Right, Stacy? Oomph, Stacy nodded. How about let's all sleep on this tonight, suggested Dad. Good idea, Dad. Maybe our problem will seem a little smaller tomorrow, said Bonk with a wink at me. Bruce poked the tail end of his fried snake into his mouth. My parents like this plan too. They don't want our goats to get cold in winter. Stacy would keep everyone safe and protected. Blar, 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 I said under my breath. What was that, Una? Asked Mom. I said I'm tired. Time for bed. Good night. Good night, everyone, said Bonk with a fake yawn. I'm turning in too. Bruce looked suspicious. You and Bonk have something fishy up your pelts, he grumbled. I can tell. If I do, you'd be the last to know, Bruce, I said. Bonk and I waited until Bruce went home. The fire was out, and our parents were snoring deep in the way back of the cave. Then we sneaked off our bed ledges and tiptoed over to Stacy, along our cave, whose nose was pressed against the zigzag cracks along our cave wall, sniffing for anything tasty. Hurry, not a second to lose, I said. We pushed the bowl under Stacy's nose. We shook in the powder. Ugh, smells like old blisters. Bonk wrinkled his nose. She might not drink it. Stacy loves new flavors, I said. Sure enough, Stacy had already tested her tongue in the bowl. Quick, now we need to say the spell. Stacy was exactly Bonk's arm span plus my arm span long. Our pinkies just touched at her middle, with the tip of my other pinky at Stacy's snout and the tip of Bonk's other pinky at her tail. Shrinky, drinky, worms, and pinky, we chanted as Stacy drank the potion in a single slurping. I held my breath. Would her shrinks happen right now? Or now? 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 Stacy sneezed, but she looked the same. Guess it takes time, said Bonk as we climbed onto our beds. Stacy jumped on the end, as usual, but she'd grown so big that her massive self took up all the room. When she stretched, she pinned me to the wall. When she tossed and turned, her spiked tail almost clobbered me. Hey, Stace, maybe tonight you could sleep on the floor, I suggested. Stacy seemed to like that idea. She jumped down and stretched full length on the ground. Soon the cave was filled with her Steg-o-snores. We were both more comfy, but I was also sad to not have Stacy smushing my toes tonight. I sure hoped her shrinks would happen soon. Hey, Oon, Bonk's face appeared upside down, hanging over his upper ledge. Shouldn't you bring those eggshells back to Old Brew? That was your gift. No way. She doesn't play by the rules, I answered. Why should I? What if she comes after you? Fear is useless. Remember? That's Gertie Droog's warrior saying. Fear alerts us, said Bonk. I just made that up. I don't know if it's an important saying yet, though. It's not, I said. You're too little to make up wise saying. Una starts the fun, but Bonkster gets it done, was a killer saying. Remember? I wasn't crazy about that saying either, but I didn't want to fight with Bonk while we were working as a team to shrink Stacy. Bonk yawned. If I didn't know our potion was a powerful witch spell, I'd say Stacy looked bigger. I rolled over. Potions take a while to get into the system. I hope so. Seconds later, Bonk was asleep. I stayed up. I let my worries come out in the dark. What if Old Brew's magic didn't work? What if Stacy didn't shrink enough? I didn't have a plan B, and aside from being squished by a camelope, I couldn't think of anything worse than Bruce taking Stacy. My excellent imagination could picture Bruce bossing me around like he knew Stacy so much better. Then I imagined Stacy giving Bruce one of her friendship licks. I felt so mad and jealous that my skin turned cold. Come on, girl, I whispered. Do your stuff. Shrink so you can stay here. Bonk was right. Stacy looked bigger. But everyone knew Old Brouhaha was one mean and powerful witch. Of course, her magic potion would work. It had to.